Oh, well, I don't even. I mean, I'm almost lost for words. But he's just that special of a human being. When you meet Jim Marshall, you consider yourself lucky to have met one of the finer people you'll ever meet in your life.
Do you have any recollections of when you first, joined the club, and if something stuck out before you knew him, as you got to know him? I mean, is there anything that stuck out in particular that you can talk to us about today?
Well, first thing, the agent I had was a guy by the name of John Wooten.
Mm-hmm.
Jim played with him with the Cleveland Browns and Jim Brown.
Okay.
And so before I even got here, he talked to me about Jim Marshall. And he told me you were about to meet one of the most unique people you ever meet in your life. And he was not wrong at all. Jim was committed, relentless, smart, just thoughtful. I mean, everything you would want a person to be in your life, he was. He was the greatest leader I think you'll ever meet. He was a leader of men. He was a guy that, if you were in trouble, if you like for instance, when he was on that, was it a snowmobile deal?
Yes, right.
Just about everybody almost died. He let everybody out, but that's the kind of guy you want. He was relentless in the way he lived, and he's the kind of guy that you would follow anywhere because that he wouldn't leave without you. And so that's I think the highest compliment I can pay Jim. He was just a unique, special. And when I can guarantee you, when that mold has been broken, never to be recast.
You played in an era in which a lot of players played through everything in a way that is,
Right.
I don't even think people could comprehend in 2025.
Right.
And yet, it appears even within that group, Marshall was on another level in terms of obviously, play 282 straight games, a streak like we've never seen before. So I'm presuming you're around him sometimes in the training room, locker room, whatever. What did you observe in that regard? I mean, was it as simple as he's just saying, I'm not going to miss the game? I mean, how was it that even then, when a lot of people played through a lot of stuff, he was, above and beyond that, given, as we said, he never missed a ball game?
Well, mentally, I don't know how he did it, but I think that with his ability to take his mind to wherever space that was, that could get him to a place where he could compete regardless of the injuries he had. I didn't have it. I don't know if I met anybody who has had it, but I just remember, I don't know what game it was, but he was in the hospital.
Yep.
And we didn't think he was going to play. Next thing you know, the ambulance shows up, drops him off, and he's playing football. And not only playing, but playing at a real high level. I'm just saying, Jim Marshall was unique in every way that you can speak of. Now, you got to remember, I was 11 years old when Jim first came into the league.
Good point.
I've read about him, and I watched him like everybody else. And when I got here and met him, and I had the privilege of having John Wooten as my agent to explain to me who he was, what kind of man he was. When I met him, I always thought he was a John before I even met him, because I'm saying to myself, there's no way anybody, human, can have those kind of qualities to be able to do what he's doing. And when I met him and I was able to be around him, he was relentless in practice. He had a motor that just didn't stop. He was bright, smart, everything you can think of. He was a great, great athlete. He could have played any sport I think he wanted to play, because when he was at Ohio State, he was one of their best. He left there early.
Right.
But I can't really explain it to you. The only thing I know that those of us who had the privilege to experience being a teammate of Jim Marshall was unique, special in every way you can think of. He was, in my opinion, I don't know that there will ever be a leader like that, or has been since he left the Vikings, or any other sport for that matter. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm talking about my own personal opinions. Jim was, wow. Bud didn't have to worry about anything.
That's it. Yep.
Jim had it covered. Jim had it covered. And
in your mind, Chuck, it's a question that's been asked for decades, maybe centuries. Are football leaders born, or are they made?
I think you got some leadership qualities within you in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jim. I think I remember Jim's father. His father had a presence about him that was, Jim got whatever Mr. Marshall had. Jim's father had. He passed it on to his son, because I remember meeting him, and he was. You got that aura from him also, but Jim. I think he's a natural born leader, and he expected a lot of himself. He expected a lot of you. And he not only expected from you, he showed you why he expected, because he didn't ask you to do anything he couldn't do.
Was he intimidating at all to play with? I feel like Marshall would have the kind of stare that would get a teammate's attention. What do you remember about that?
One thing I know is if you were looking in Jim Marshall's eyes playing against him, you knew you were in for a long day, because he had and I keep using the word relentless, and I'm hoping I'm using the right word, because he came at you regardless. He had no stop. His motor was unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, and then when he'd be done playing the game, he'd be ready to go do something else at 150%. So, those guys, people like him, and I don't know that there is another Jim Marshall or will ever be. I know in Minnesota, they got that statue of him over there.
Yep.
And I don't know if anybody else has ever been here that deserves to be in there other than Jim Marshall. And we've had a lot of great players here. Don't miss, and I'm not disrespecting any.
I know.
But what Jim Marshall brought to the Minnesota Vikings, nobody has brought since. Brought some great players, no question about it. And we've had some great ones, no question, a bunch of us. But Jim Marshall, no, there's only one of him.
Give me your favorite Jim Marshall-related Gage Hall, the man with the keys story.
I can't tell you those stories.
Come on, man. The statute of limitations is run out. Nobody can get in trouble now. But Bud can't discipline you at this point, Chuck.
No, he can't. But I remember one thing that I remember. That sign that says what you see here, what you do here, what you say here stays here for life.
Okay. That's
I got to honor the code, man.
Yeah.
The only thing I can tell you is the top floor of Gage Hall in training camp, Friday evening, night, whatever you want to call it was on. Yeah, that's all I can tell you.
Well, we don't need names. You don't have to give us names.
I'm not giving you names. I'm just telling you, it was the best. It was like the best club you could go to.
and I'm guessing it all ran through Jim.
And it all ran through Jim. He had keys to everything. I remember. Anyway, you got locked out. Mm-hmm. You didn't worry about it. You just called Jim. Hey, Jim, let me in. Because you had because like Stubby Easton, the equipment guy,
yes.
His room was right there by the door.
Yes.
But Stubby only had one leg. You could do one or two things. You try to get the keys from him. If you couldn't find the keys, all you do is take his leg and hide it. And then you could get in.
Man.
Because he couldn't catch you.
Yeah.
You open the door, leave the door open. Somebody go open the door. You can sneak in. He could hear you coming, but he couldn't get to you because his leg was down the hall somewhere. So you made it not get, and then you didn't get fined for being out past curfew. Of course, Bud probably knew anyway, but
exactly.
Yeah,
that's it. Did you ever get in trouble with Jim?
Man, you'd be a fool to do that. Yeah, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying Jim Marshall. When I say Jim was unique and relentless, I'm saying I wouldn't want to be in a street fight with him either.
Right.
As a, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
That would be like, no, man, I'm not doing that. And I'm telling you, you know what? He'd win every time. Because he also knew all that kung fu karate crap too.
Right, yes. So
he knew. I'm telling you, he had every gadget you could have. He was probably one of the smartest people you'll ever meet. He just lived life to the fullest. There was nothing. I'm just telling you, he was. There's no more Jim. Hey, that's it. There's only one of him, and it's all special.
You mentioned the snowmobile deal. We talked about a couple other. He had all kinds of afflictions he dealt with. Wasn't there a hang glider? Didn't he have a hang glider accident too?
Yeah. Yeah, and the bottom line is, the place where he was trying to take off from at Jefferson High School.
Right.
If you went over there, and I'm like, what was he thinking? It was one of them light gliders where you had a motor on it.
Right.
And he was trying to take off from that high school field. And plus he was 250 pounds, so I don't know. It was a light thing.
Yeah.
From what I understood, the motor, didn't have enough power to get that lift. It lifted him all right, but not high enough. And that's when he had the accident.
Yeah. So did he have a good amount of daredevil in him?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I'd follow Jim pretty much if I had to survive and stuff like that.
Sure.
But there's a limit that where I would go.
Yes.
Because he had that, because he could, I would never doubt that he wouldn't survive anything he tried.
Right.
And I think all of us that know him know that. But I just wouldn't have the nerve to do it, I guess. That's what I could say about it. The guy was one of the, like I told you, like I said before, definitely when they made him, they threw the darn mold away, because you can't tell me there's another one of him anywhere.
Chuck, did you guys ever talk about, or did you ever try talking to him about his infamous, grabs the fumble and runs the wrong way? And I think that was in '64, so that was obviously before your time. Did you guys ever talk about that?
That was a no-no. I wasn't going to talk to him about it. You going to talk to him? He just, no, you might, because I would be afraid that I would catch him in a bad day.
Yeah, right.
If something like that, that might not be good. Because, I'm telling you, Jim Marshall was a lot of things, but you didn't mess with him.
Yeah.
And he'd fight with you to the death, no question about it. But, he was just, let me just put it, Jim lived 87 years, and he lived 87 great years. Now, that's all I can say. He lived a great life. There's nothing that he wanted to do he didn't try. He's anybody that came through here that met him will tell you, Jim Marshall. When you talk about Viking,
yeah,
and I don't care who the heck came through here, me, anybody else, there's only one Minnesota Viking that's legendary. Only one, and that's Jim Marshall.
Very well said. That's why I started the show with is, there have been some great players, as you know, in this franchise, but he seemed to fit the mythology of it, right? He seemed to sort of be the heart and soul of the whole operation.
So you see that image of a Viking, the big white guy with the big white beard and the real long hair?
Yes.
Okay. Well, all that's in place, but put a black face in there, and you got Jim Marshall.
That's it. 100%.
Everything you thought of a Viking, you put his face in there, and it's perfect.
The mentality.
He'll fight till the death.
Yeah.
He was just tough and tough and tough. That's what it was.
Well, and then, like you said, when you got stories like getting caught in a blizzard, right? I mean, it's just and finding his way out of that, it all fits. It's almost like a Hollywood story, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what? There should be a movie made about this guy. If there's ever going to be a bestseller, that would be a great sports legend story. Jim Marshall.
No question. It's
the greatest of all, right?
It's such a rich story. And a lot of people don't even know the half of it, as you said. Do you think it was easy for Bud to spot the leadership qualities in him? Did you ever talk to Bud about that?
No, I never really had long conversations with Bud. But I know Bud knew and identified who his leader was.
Yep.
And I knew he loved Jim Marshall like one of his own brothers or sisters or whatever it was, but he knew Jim was special, and that's all I can say. Bud knew what he was doing when he made him captain. And when they say cap, there's only one cap of the Minnesota Vikings, then and now, and that's Jim Marshall.
By the way, I think he was captain. Was it 14 years? I don't remember. I think it's about that. Whatever it was for a long time. So was it like, is it something you guys voted on every year, or was it Bud made the decision and he just stuck with it, or how did it work with captains back in those days? What do you remember?
I think when they name a captain on teams, and then you might change every year or stuff like that. But with our team and the Minnesota Vikings of my era, it was automatic who the captain was, because there was nobody on our team that had the special gifts that Jim Marshall had as a leader. He was, he showed you what it took to be the best. He was bright, smart. He was all those things. He was a gift to the Minnesota Viking franchise. And like I said, they got that statue up over there, and that's the guy that should be there, because he is the all-time Viking, as a person, as a football player, as a man, as everything you can think of. I think he meets and goes beyond all those qualifications.
What was he like with fans? You and I have talked, I mentioned it earlier in the show, that when you guys played, I felt like there was, not as big a space between, and as big a buffer between fans and players, that you guys talked about sometimes after games, in the Met parking lot, talking to people, eating with them, etc. Right. What was he like in those days with fans? He was very engaging to everybody. He would never turn down anybody for an autograph or anything like that. Mm-hmm.
When I say he was a professional, I mean professional about every aspect of being a celebrity or football player or whatever. If you just watched how he handled himself, you'd do quite well. And so I said, I was behind him,
Sure. Yep.
I was, like I said, I was watching him long before I was anywhere near being in a league of any kind. So to get there, to not only meet him and to be his teammate, and even though there was a big age difference, well, like 15, 16 years or something like that, but it was still, just a privilege to have been a part of the Vikings and knowing Jim Marshall like I knew him. I mean, every now and then there's a bump in the road, but
Yep, sure.
It always gets smoothed over and it goes. But he was, a great. Like I say, he was. When you say Vikings, just put Jim Marshall up there. he is the ultimate Viking, in my opinion. And we had a lot of great players come through here, but there's none like Jim Marshall.
I'm hoping a lot of younger Vikings fans are listening to this because, it's hard when you're younger because you haven't grown up with the same players and you haven't maybe seen the same film or whatever the case may be. You've heard about that era. But I think it's important for them to hear this stuff. I really do. If they care about history and this is how the story kind of gets brought back to life, right? Is folks like you. And Guardsy and I talked about this separately when the story broke.